Honestly, when I first started the business, I just didn't want to work corporate America anymore.
Okay.
I could not take the rat race, and I did the math, and I was like, well, I'm pretty sure I can make like 50 grand a year.
Okay.
Like, a guy comes to me, he's like, hey, I got bad news. We filed bankruptcy, so we're not going to pay you for any of this work.
Wow. So did you learn welding from your grandpa, or did you go to school for it?
And I did grow up in the shop with Grandpa,
Okay.
working on trailers. And in actuality, when you get into business, you're like, I can't afford new stuff. Like, I need to make do with whatever I can. So, one, I can't do this forever.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm doing this type of work and this type of hell,
Exactly.
I've got to make good decisions.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to make this pay off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is clearly my shot to do.
Welcome back to the Let's Evolve for Tomorrow podcast. I'm your host, Tyrone, and we help aspiring, new, and existing entrepreneurs excel to the next level by inviting other aspiring, new, and existing entrepreneurs to the podcast to give information, knowledge on how to get to the next level. I have a very special guest here with us, and I say a very special guest, Preston Vance. This guy and I, we were friends back at Chase. For a few years, we worked in the same department. I happened to see a commercial one day. He popped up on TV, and I'm like, oh, okay, hey, I know that guy. And I wanted to invite him to the podcast. I mean, literally when I called, within 2 minutes, he accepted the invite. So that makes me feel like we really built, a great friendship or a great background or great history for him to accept the invitation with no hesitation. But he started his business in 2011. Vance Transportation Service. This guy is very successful, but I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to let him jump in and give the rest of the information. Vance?
Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, Preston.
Yeah.
So go for it, man. If you don't mind, just give us a brief introduction, man, and tell us a little bit about yourself and your history.
Yeah. So Preston Vance. I own and operate Vance Transportation Services in Lockbourne, Ohio. We specialize in semi-trailer repair and maintenance, focusing on large corporate fleets, primarily business to business. So we've been in business since about 2011. Started out with one mobile truck and have grown it into, I think we've got about 15 employees right now, and built our own facility and kind of expanded into some other avenues, but it's all basically transportation based.
Okay. So how many bays do you have now?
6 bays and 2 service trucks.
6 bays, and it's all business to business.
Yes.
Okay, so if this is not being prying too much, what's like gross revenue in that type of business?
So it's all based on flat rate hours.
Okay.
So, we bill a little over 2,000 hours a month.
Okay.
So that's been
That's
kind of our average.
24,000 a year, 24,000 hours. Is my math right?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay.
So
Gotcha. So all you work on is tractor trailers, and that's it?
we stick primarily to the trailers.
Okay.
They're kind of a little bit more of a niche group.
Uh-huh.
So most companies right now average 3 to 5 trailers per truck.
Okay.
So a lot of companies are leaving their truck maintenance in-house to control those costs and outsourcing primarily their trailers. And they take up a lot of space. So we found kind of this little area in the market that we're able to service and do really well at.
Okay. So something that I'm curious about, like, I know you operate business to business. How many different corporations do you partner with?
We've probably got 30 or so that we work with on a regular basis. About 10 to 12 that we are pretty heavy with, where we're seeing and contacting them pretty much every single day. We're managing a lot of their maintenance programs and handling a large volume of their work.
Okay.
We've got some customers where we handle everything. They don't even have a facility in the area, but they have transportation in the area. So we're handling everything. So with commercial vehicles, everything needs inspected at least once every 12 months to be legal by federal regulations.
Mm-hmm.
So, but most of our customers are doing them every 90 days, 60 days, 180 days. So that's a big part of our operation, is our mobile trucks out continually keeping up on maintenance on the units. If they find something we don't want to do on site that's a little bit heavier than what we want to do out there, we've got a driver. We'll go pick up, bring the trailer to our shop, fix it, and send it back to the customer. So
Okay. So how many mobile units do you have?
2.
2? Okay, so 6 bays, 2 mobile units. You're billing 2,000 hours a month.
Yeah.
You're working with 13 different organizations, 12 to 15 heavily, correct?
Yeah.
Wow, man. So that's a huge accomplishment, right?
Yeah.
So now you're here. So let's peel back the layers, right?
Yeah.
And let's start with what inspired you.
Honestly, when I first started the business, I just didn't want to work corporate America anymore.
Okay.
I could not take the rat race, and I did the math, and I was like, well, I'm pretty sure I can make like 50 grand a year.
Okay.
Like that was like the whole thing. All right, I can make 50 grand. So I went to the bank on Monday, and I had closed a loan on a brand new Silverado,
Mm-hmm.
and I took a $2,500 personal loan.
Mm-hmm.
And once that was closed on Monday, it was done. That was my little rig, a pull behind trailer and a pickup truck. So on Tuesday morning, I went in and said, I don't work here anymore, and packed up my stuff, and I left Chase. And that was as far as I was going to go with the business. I really thought that was my future, was my little pull behind trailer, and make a little extra money here and there, and that was it.
What kind of equipment did you purchase?
I bought a used welder off of Craigslist, and I
Okay.
borrowed some tools from my grandpa and throw in the trailer, and
Okay.
just whatever I could do. So my original concept was I wanted to do like mobile welding and fabrication, and quickly realized that is not a viable market, especially without having like previous contacts for it.
Right.
I was getting called out to jobs that just physically could not be done because people don't understand metal or fabrication or engineering. So my grandpa already had a semi-trailer repair business,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a much easier avenue to kind of see what he had going on and just build and grow upon that.
So did you learn welding from your grandpa, or did you go to school for it?
I went to Taze Valley,
Okay.
and they had a really good agricultural program.
Okay.
So I spent most of my time out in the ag building, taking small engines, woodworking, welding. I was just completely obsessed with it. And I did grow up in the shop with Grandpa,
Okay.
working on trailers. And then right after high school, I started building custom trucks in Grandpa's garage.
I remember that.
So that's where a lot of my like real fabrication and mechanical ability came from, was just taking things apart and rebuilding them and putting them back together.
Okay.
So I was pretty confident in my abilities to do pretty much anything at the time.
Right. So let's talk about that turning point, right? So you started off with the fabrication. You figured out, okay, wait, that's not the route I want to go. I'm not really making any money. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what was that turning point from, I'm going to pivot from here to working on the tractor trailers or the trailers?
When I realized, like one of the first weeks I was working for a leasing company, and I realized that they wanted me there every day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, wait a minute, they're paying me $50 an hour and I get to be here every day. Like, this is a way easier avenue.
Right.
So, at that time, like I was, a couple weeks in business, everything was going good. I was working for this leasing company, and I think I'd built out like $3,000 worth of work. I thought I was rich. And at the end of the second week, guy comes to me, he's like, hey, I got bad news. We filed bankruptcy, so we're not going to pay you for any of this work.
Wow.
Yeah. So the first,
So you were a W-2 employee?
No, I was going to be 1099. I was billing them through my company.
Ah, okay.
But he comes out and says, hey, we filed bankruptcy, so I don't think you're ever going to get paid on this stuff. I'm sorry. Like, you got to go now. So
let's go back to, you got the truck, you got the trailer, you got the equipment.
yeah.
Did you have a shop at that point, or were you parking it in front of your house? What did you?
I was still living with my grandparents at the time, so I was
Okay.
parking it in their driveway. And so Grandpa had a small shop.
Okay.
He had started a business like back in the 70s and kept like a really kind of a small family operation.
Mm-hmm.
Did a lot of owner op stuff, and he didn't want to be too big. He was very comfortable. He supported, the family, and everyone did good, and that was where he was at. So
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of my jumping off point.
Okay.
I was able to kind of run parts through him. I knew the parts contacts, like where to get things, and he had a pretty good reputation in town. So when I would go to places, hey, this is my grandpa, and they're like, oh, I did business with him, back in the 80s or whatever. So, and that was something that was really, really helpful
Mm-hmm.
to help get going, was having kind of that, already having blue check mark, I guess, next to my name of a family reputation.
Right. So did he connect you with the company that filed bankruptcy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he was doing work, so he got,
And that was your first official gig, right?
Yeah, that was really the first couple weeks in business was I was out doing a lot of welding on their units, bumpers and dolly legs and that kind of thing.
Okay.
That was.
So did they ever pay you at all?
No.
Or, okay, you
No.
just took a loss on it?
Yep, that was a big old L.
Okay. All right. So what was next?
So right after that, I got into one of the Honda suppliers. So that was like almost immediately I was able to kind of pick up with them and really just was rolling with them almost on a daily basis. And it was every day, whatever I could do to move the needle. As long as I could make, $100, $150 a day, that was it. If I didn't have work, I was on Craigslist trying to buy something from an auction to flip it for scrap. Scrap was up a little bit at that time still. So I was buying and scrapping semi-trailers. I would drive around and find carriers in the area, whoever had a name on their trailer, and I would just go cold call shops and whoever I could find that needed trailer work, I was contacting them. That was it.
So how'd you get the connection with Honda?
Through Grandpa.
Oh, okay.
So he was already kind of working. They had a couple vendors on the lot, and nobody was really doing a great job. So I go out and I'm like, I can be here and I will do literally whatever you need me to do. I will do it.
Okay.
So I just dedicated pretty much all my resources to them, and that went good for a couple of months, and then their fiscal year ended, and he calls and says, "Hey, we can't use you for a couple months." So then I got in. I was connected to Ryder, and like as soon as like the Honda thing kind of died down, we went to Ryder. And that was what really set a trajectory for me. So I really had my pulled behind trailer for just a couple of months. I outgrew that operation pretty quickly. It was kind of a nuisance. And I pulled a truck out of the field and put a box on it and basically built like a box truck.
Yeah.
Painted it up with some Tractor Supply paint, and that was kind of the next step of the operation. Then I would have just whoever I could find to kind of help me on days, friends, my brothers, like whoever was available just to ride along and help out and kind of ease some of the burden of service calls. So at that time I was picking up customers, working 12 to 16 hours a day, Monday through Friday. Saturdays I would do from about 7 to 2.
Okay.
And then Sunday I would do all my billing and wash my clothes, and that was every week.
So when you made this decision to leave Chase, I'm assuming before then you sat down with your grandparents and had a conversation about this transition you were going to make, and they supported it, right?
No, there wasn't a whole lot of conversation. I'm pretty bullheaded with stuff. Like once my mind's made up, that's kind of the direction I'm going. So it was like, hey, this is what I'm doing now. And I think Grandpa was pretty nervous because he was like, the market was kind of shaky still at the time. He's like, I don't know. I'm like, I do. Like, I'll figure it out. Like I'm going to do okay at this.
Right.
So I just kind of went for it.
Okay. So you bought a new truck. So you parked the truck once you pulled the old truck out of the field.
Yeah.
Put a box on it. Did all the work yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what you put on the road.
Yeah, it was a 1989 International. So I'd started out with the concept of like I need to buy like new stuff and do all this, and then in actuality, when you get into business, you're like I can't afford new stuff. Like I need to make do with whatever I can. So this it was actually a really like interesting turn of events. It was like this 1989 International was just sitting out in the field that we had already like taken another box off of it for a guy. So I called the dude. I'm like, hey, can I buy this truck from you? He's like, $1,500. I'm like, perfect. Like, I don't have $1,500, but I'll figure out how to get $1,500.
Okay.
So he just mails me the title, and he's like, I'll get the money later. And then I never heard from him again.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was like a godsend. And then in 2021, he needed some work done on a truck, and he got reconnected with me, and I was like, I can't tell you how much I actually owe you. Like, I'm doing all your work for free right now. Like, you have unlimited credit in my world, because that $1,500 was everything to me at the time. So that was a really cool a cool interaction.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
So you get Ryder as a client. Was that through Grandpa
Yep.
as well?
Sort of. Yeah, he'd already kind of had some contacts, and then there was another guy in town doing some of the work that didn't really want to tackle that anymore. He was kind of transitioning his business, and he was nice enough to hook me up with them and made that contact. So that was really beneficial for me.
Okay. What type of work did you do?
For
Like, I
Ryder-
know you repaired their trailers, right?
Yeah, so it was
Like-
pretty much all for them. It was a lot of the damage repair.
Uh-huh.
So they rent the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So when the customer would damage it, they do a lot more of the maintenance and preventative maintenance stuff. So they don't handle a lot of the damage. So they outsource it.
Okay.
So we're doing a lot of the damage work, and then at the time they had about 400 trailers around Columbus that were all on full maintenance programs.
Okay.
And they all started needing brake jobs at the same time. So I got into doing 3 or 4 brake jobs a day.
Wow. By yourself.
Yeah, and they were supplying parts.
Mhm.
So I didn't have any money out of pocket. So it was like this perfect trajectory. And then kind of through that time, they'd called me out for a brake job. It was like dead of winter, and it was really, really cold. And I was doing anything they needed.
Mhm.
I'm your man. Like, I will go to great lengths to make things happen for these customers.
Right.
So I go out and I put a bottle of water on the back of my service truck. I do the brake job. When I was done with the brake job, my bottle of water had frozen. It was that cold.
Yeah.
And that was a big turning point in my mindset, because I thought, well, one, I can't do this forever.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm doing this type of work and this type of hell,
Exactly.
I've got to make good decisions.
Mhm.
I've got to make this pay off. Like,
Mhm.
this is clearly my shot to do something greater. We're taking it all the way.
Exactly.
And that was like a moment that just changed my whole life, of like, we've got to make good decisions.
Okay, so I've heard that mindset is always the first change, right?
Mhm.
So shift in mindset. What was the second step?
The second step, so I found like a second service truck, kind of eased some of the burden on me, and we quickly filled that, to capacity. And we were really like, there was me and my grandpa's brother. He was running the other service truck,
Mm-hmm.
and that was going like really well. Got to the point I was kind of feeding a lot of work to Grandpa, because he had a lot of owner op stuff, and those were kind of shaky. So I started getting these corporate customers. So I started kind of feeding Grandpa work.
Mm.
And then in 2014, on the kind of the same property his shop was on, there was a much larger shop that became available.
Mm-hmm.
So I went for it in 2014. That's
So-
when we made like a really big jump from kind of the 2 service trucks, and like I was kind of managing like 1 bay at Grandpa's little 2-bay shop,
Mm.
to running 12,000 square feet and hiring employees and figuring out like how to do a legitimate payroll instead of just like paying people cash. And,
So wait, so you had the mobile trucks.
yeah,
When you say you were parking it at your grandpa's place, you were talking about the shop.
yeah,
Okay, so he had a 2-bay shop.
yep.
He kind of gave you your start. After he gave you your start, you started getting business. You started feeding him business. How was that conversation with your uncle? Was that
Yeah.
the person? How did that conversation go when you're like, hey, what's his name? Your
My uncle Walt.
Okay, Uncle Walt, I need your help.
Yeah.
I mean, did he just jump right at the opportunity? Did it
Yeah.
take some convincing?
No, he jumped at it. He was an over-the-road trucker, and he would come back off the road, and we'd work till 2:00 in the morning trying to get his truck ready to go back out. And it was just kind of this perfect relationship of like, he didn't really want to do what he was doing anymore. I needed help, and he just jumped in, and he still drives for me today. Like,
Wow.
I mean, I wouldn't be where I am without him. Like, I owe so much to him and Grandpa
Right.
for just the support and help that they've given me through the years.
So when he jumped on board, you just had Ryder at the time, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was like, well, a couple other customers. We'd picked back up with Honda, and it was, but it was shaky. I mean, it was going and finding work pretty much every day. And then once we got to that point, it was kept snowballing.
Right. So what was that point where you just really took off? I know you said you changed your mindset. You had your Uncle Walt come on board. You had Ryder. But what was that milestone that you hit when you really just kind of took off?
When I moved into that first big shop,
Okay.
because it was a leap of faith. I went from, splitting a $1,200 a month rent to, I think it was $4,000 a month in rent, and buying equipment, and running payroll, and quickly went from, me and my uncle making enough to survive and a little bit extra to like, oh, this is a real business. And with that jump, the concept was, I don't want to be an employee of my business. I want to be a business owner. And I knew I needed to grow to a point that I didn't have to work in the business every day. Like I wanted to be able to work on the business, and I knew that was the only way to do it. And that was kind of this moment to make that jump. So I just went for it.
Okay. So the other shop, the smaller shop, did you sell that one or did you?
It was all rented. Everything was rented at that point.
Okay.
So we just moved, and it was on the same. The property had changed ownership at the time, so it all just kind of a perfect storm for us to have that other building available.
Okay. So you move into the larger building. I'm assuming you picked up more business.
Yeah. So one of my big customers, it took me almost 2 years to finally get them on board with me. I had it set up in my calendar, so every 3 months I would go visit them.
Okay.
And I kept pursuing it, and they would never give me a chance. And finally, as I was getting ready to move into the big shop, I was out in the service truck, I was busy, and I just was like, I'm going there right now. Like it was like I didn't have a choice. The universe just drove me to their location. I walk in and I meet all the people in charge in the hallway. And the guy just looks at me, he's like, "You are the most persistent person I've ever met." And I'm like, "Just give me a shot, man. Like, just give me a shot." So they just started giving me like the worst stuff they had, and we would turn it in like 24 hours and get it back to them. And they realized like, oh, like, okay, you are a serious business. You can get some stuff done, and like, they're still my biggest customer.
So they wanted to see how serious you were. They
Yeah.
were testing you.
And it's weird how the timing works. Is if they would have given me a shot prior to that, I don't think I could have been able to support it.
Why not?
I wasn't in the big shop. I think it would have been way too much to really take on what they needed me to do.
Okay.
So it's weird how the universe has like kind of placed these timing things for me through the process of this.
So let's talk about that a little bit more, right? So it sounds like that was your first interaction, business to business on your own, without Grandpa kind of laying the groundwork for you. Can you kind of walk us through how you built that relationship and how you stayed so consistent and persistent over the course of 2 years? Because myself included and other people are thinking they want to do business to consumer. They're like, oh, okay, that's fine. But I need to understand, how do I get past the wall, past the door to talk to the decision makers?
The big thing that I've realized through that, early on, I don't think I really grasp it until... You don't get it until you get it, right? It's figuring out how to provide them good value. Every organization has needs. What are their needs, and what can you do to help them out? Our customers, when they send something out, they don't want to think about it. Like when it goes back, it needs to be right, swept out. It's ready to go. So we manage probably more than the average shop does. But that's the value that we provide to our customers. So, they've got 12,000 trailers, and they've all got to be on the road as much as possible to make them as much money as possible.
Right.
So figuring out how their operation works, the types of trailers they have, the work they need, how we can manage the workflow of some of the bigger like accident jobs versus, the minor brake jobs and minor damage stuff, like really getting a flow with the customer and understanding their business is key. So what I've done over the last few years is make sure that we're diversified of working with carriers and with leasing companies.
Okay.
So there's a big market in the transportation industry of large investment firms that own giant groups of trailers, 20, 30, 40, 50,000 trailers, and they lease those to carriers.
Okay. Is that like your Ryder, your Penske?
Penske Extra Lease, Milestone Trailer Leasing. There's a big portion of the market is that type of work.
Gotcha.
So we've figured out kind of how to balance working with carriers and with leasing companies, so that during peak times, the leasing companies don't really have any work because all their trailers are leased to carriers. So at that point in time, we're managing the carriers' needs. But we know that typically in January, the big carriers are turning their trailers in. We're going to work the leasing companies at that time.
Okay. So let's go back to that first large carrier, right? Building that relationship. So you're visiting them every 3 months. Are they like blowing you off? Like, come back next time. He's not here. They're not here. The decision makers haven't looked at your proposal.
Yeah.
What was that whole interaction like?
Yeah, it was a lot of just kind of being blown off. Like, oh yeah, I'll give you a call if we have anything. I'll give you a call if we have anything. Everyone was, polite, nice and polite about it, but
Okay.
and honestly, like, I think a lot of it was presentation. I think I've early on, you don't really understand how important the presentation is of yourself. Perception is reality. So
Exactly.
kind of building myself up, and just even like being dressed a little more professionally when I went in. I don't know how much that may have played into that or whatever it is, but just keep going. Eventually, it'll.
Did you wear a suit?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. No,
Okay.
it's not in the transportation world. But even just wearing like a collared work shirt versus a ratty T-shirt or something makes a big difference. So
Right.
going in wearing proper work boots instead of tennis shoes, like that kind of thing. Just showing that you are serious about what you're doing.
So how did you know who the decision makers were? How did you identify
I
them?
would literally walk into shops and just start asking questions.
Okay.
Who do I talk to about this?
Okay.
And, sometimes you get yelled at, sometimes you get kicked off the property, and sometimes someone will talk to you. But there was a lot of that, of just driving around and going into places of like, who does this for you?
Right.
Can I do it? Because I promise I'll do it better than whoever's doing it.
Okay.
And just setting an example of like, we will do whatever we need to do to kind of get your business and keep your business and understand your operation.
So what about those larger carriers where you couldn't just walk into an office because their headquarters is located somewhere else? What about them, like making those calls? What did that look like?
Networking.
Okay.
Just asking a lot of questions around town of figuring out who to talk to and how to get in contact with them. During COVID, when that first happened and Honda shut down, well, Honda was like one of our biggest customers, like one of the Honda carriers. So I figured out the customers I thought would make sense for us, and I got on LinkedIn and figured out who was in charge of that stuff. I hand wrote letters to them with a flyer of about who we are and what we do, and I FedExed it to their desk.
That's huge, man.
Yeah, there's always a way to get in contact with somebody. You just got to think creatively.
Absolutely.
So that's what I did.
Okay. So with all of the success that you were having, it sounds like, you were just given the golden ticket, but I'm sure there were some key challenges that kind of came along the way.
Oh, yeah.
So what were some of those, like that one key challenge that stands out in your mind to this day, and how did you overcome it?
Well, a lot of challenges that I faced, especially early on, they were financial challenges, because doing business to business, everything is on an accrual based, where it's on an account and they're paying us in 30, 45, 60, 90 days. So just because you might do a $10,000 a month, you don't have $10,000. You actually don't have anything, because you spent all of your money to earn the $10,000, and you hope that next month you can do $15,000. But to do $15,000, you're going to spend every check that comes in. So as you grow that accrual based business, the money is always tight.
Right.
It's never, it really like never catches up until there's like, you really got to have a couple slow months for the money to catch up. It's a very weird dynamic. So with that, like early on when I had just 2 service trucks and a couple helpers, I remember sitting with Grandpa. It was like a Wednesday morning, and I'm looking at Grandpa. I'm like, I'm done after today. I'm like, I literally have $0 to pay my guys past today. Like this afternoon, I'm sending everybody home with their cash. I'm going to work until my parts run out, and then I'm done. Like, I don't have money to buy parts. I don't have money for gas. I don't have money for anything.
What year was this?
This would have been
Because you started in
It's probably
2011.
2013 at this point still.
Okay. So 2 years later?
Yeah.
Okay.
And like that day, like a check for like, you know, like $5,000 or something came in, and it was like, all right, like we can work tomorrow,
Right.
like, you know, and those moments really just kind of build on themselves, where you start stacking up proof that it's going to work out,
Mm-hmm.
and it takes a little bit of the stress away over time, but
Right.
it's still stressful.
So, I mean, at that point, you had that $5,000 check to come in. How did you make it through the next month? Or was it kind of like,
It was like that. It was just like that.
okay,
Like, pretty
that
regularly.
one check came through where you
Mhm.
took care of your staff.
Yep.
How did you get to a point where that changed? Was it more business?
Being very diligent on money management.
Okay.
When I finally got my first line of credit,
Mm-hmm.
the bank, we finally got a line of credit. I borrowed against the line,
Mm-hmm.
put it in a savings account,
Mm-hmm.
and then paid the line back.
Okay.
And that worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
That was like this
Smart.
little thing. So I was able to build my credit on, you know, the business credit, and kind of show the bank like we are a viable entity, and that was a big step forward for us, to being able to just, even like borrowing money that we didn't need,
Mhm.
and paying it back, and just
Mhm.
leaving that in that savings account to keep some kind of nest egg.
Nice.
And that was a huge step forward. And that was sometime in 2014, probably late 2014,
Mm-hmm.
when that happened.
You know, and the reason I asked, I've had conversations with multiple people sitting in the same chair that said the exact same thing. And everyone was very creative with how they paid their staff, or kept the lights on, or kept the doors open.
Mhm.
And to know that literally every entrepreneur from different walks of life experienced the exact same thing. So to know that you went out and got a business line of credit to say, hey, if we're ever on hard times as a business, I know that I have your guys you need to take
Yeah.
care of. So you put something in place for that. So just really wanting the listeners to know that there are, creative ways to do that.
There's always a way.
Yeah.
Like, there's always a way.
So are there any other businesses like yours, let's just say in the state of Ohio?
To do trailer repair?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably over 50 people in Central Ohio that do trailer repair.
Okay.
I think we're probably one of the last like independent shops. Most of the other ones, like of our scale,
Mhm.
most of the other ones have some sort of corporate backing. They're owned by a trailer manufacturer. They've got a new trailer dealership alongside of them. So we're kind of the last of a dying breed in the transportation world. It's all being consolidated to larger groups and private equity right now.
Gotcha. So when you did your business plan, how did you do the research to identify those 50 competitors?
I did not have that clear of a plan.
Okay.
It was just, we're gonna go with it. But when it comes to the size of the business, so
Mhm.
I tell my guys, like, we're not competing with anybody else. We're competing with ourselves. Getting caught up on what everyone else is doing is just gonna eat you up, and you're gonna waste your energy, because at the end of the day, you're not gonna be able to do all of it.
Mhm.
You need your competitors.
Mhm.
It's got to be diversified, and even like our customers. A lot of our customers use multiple vendors in town,
Mhm.
and that's the way it's got to go, just because there is so much volume of work.
Mhm.
But it was figuring out, for me, the business plan was more what makes sense for us. And when you look at, well, first of all, I was limited on the size of the building I could build. We built the building in 2016 into 17
Mhm.
after the fire. If you look at NTB and Discount Tire and those like national chains that all clearly make a lot of profit,
Mhm.
they're all 6 to 8 bays. So there's a kind of a sweet spot in that world of productivity, support staff, and profit. 2 more bays isn't necessarily going to make you more money, because you might need an extra parts person or an extra office person or an extra driver that are not billable hours. They're just going to be a straight cost to the company.
Mhm.
So you've got to figure out what makes sense. Grossing more doesn't necessarily mean you're going to make more.
Right. Okay, so let's go back, because I don't want to skip over the fire.
Yeah.
So that was the second shop that you rented.
Yep.
Okay, so tell us about that.
So that was April of 2016. Guy was welding on a trailer, wasn't following protocol, caught the trailer on fire. It expanded and burnt everything to the ground in front of our eyes.
Wow.
Like, we watched it.
Did anyone get hurt?
No, everyone got out.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
So, how did that disrupt your business, if there was a disruption?
So, man, it disrupted everything.
Okay.
But up to that point, we had been growing year over year, and like, I think in 2015 we had we had our biggest year, and everything was good. And you kind of think that you're special, but when you talk to the business owners and entrepreneurs and that, it's like something will get you. It's it's like running a business is like looking both ways to cross the road and getting hit by an airplane.
Right.
Like, you cannot prepare for everything, but something I had learned at Chase was business contingency. How do we run this business in a worst case scenario?
Exactly.
So anyway, so the shop is
Chase University.
Yeah, like that. I learned a surprising amount at that place. So
how did you pivot?
we had service trucks, and
Okay.
I had some parts stashed in another building. So so the fire happened on Friday, and actually, like, I remember laughing during the fire. Like, I mean, I was full of emotion of all these other things, but there was this moment that I'll never forget, because I remember watching everything I had built burn to the ground, and I was like, they were right. Like, everyone was right. Like, this is that moment in time that something got me.
Right.
Like, it was a weld that was probably less than 4 inches. I mean, it was the simplest little job
Wow.
that could ever be done. Like, it was such a stupid thing that happened.
So how how did that happen again? Did it like
The
catch on
trailer,
fire?
the trailer had cardboard in it. They didn't check the inside.
Oh.
So they
okay.
just did this little weld, and they heard sizzling. Opens the door, the oxygen hit it, and it just engulfed pretty much immediately.
Wow. How many service trucks did you have at that time?
I think we had 3 at that time.
Okay.
So we cleared. So that happened on Friday. We cleared the rubble. We worked on Monday. So we lost everything and never missed a day of production.
Wow.
And I'm really proud of that. And that was a big thing. Like, as I'm watching it burn, I knew I'm going to have to tell this story, right, wrong, or otherwise. What happens from here on out? This is a story I will have to tell.
Absolutely.
I'm going to make it a good story.
Right.
Like, as hard as it is, and the disruption and the chaos it's caused, like, even to this day, but it was.
So how long
it's a story.
did it take before you built your next shop, or before you completed it?
So we'd bought the land in 20 that we're on now. We'd bought that in 15 with the anticipation of building sometime around like 19 or 20.
Okay.
And, we'd kind of overextended ourselves to even get that property. So that just moved the timeline up. So we went to the bank and said, hey, we've got to, like, do this right now. Like, there's no option. So I found a guy down in Circleville that was super cool about everything, and he was like, it was a rental shop, another rental. He said, just move your stuff in, we'll figure out the lease and everything later. He's like, I've been in business a long time, it's happened to me before. He's like, just keep working and we'll figure it out. So,
man, you've had some favor. Wow.
Yeah.
That's huge. Okay, so let's go back to competitors, right? What sets you apart? What sets Vance Transportation apart from all of the other competitors?
I think there's a couple of things. At this point, we're big enough to get done what you need done, but we're small enough to be creative. We don't have these set corporate guidelines like some of the bigger shops, so we're able to kind of operate outside of normal functions on a couple of things here and there. And then also that I'm still heavily involved in the business. And then we had talked off camera of being able to meet all of the people I deal with. I can meet the mechanics in the shop because I understand that operation, and I can meet the VPs and the CEOs and the maintenance managers at that level of being able to conduct a real business conference call and be able to send a good email, and, those little things, and span all of their needs.
Why does that come to you so easy?
Because I've been all those people.
Okay.
You know, from the guy crawling around in the muck with his water bottle freezing, doing the brake job, to the guy that's navigating the financial world of borrowing money and developing property. So,
right,
understanding all of the struggles and the fact that at the end of the day, we're all just trying to do our jobs.
mm-hmm.
We're all trying to just earn a living and go home at the end of the day and make it as streamlined as possible. So just understanding that everyone has their own needs, and
mm-hmm.
you got to treat each individual and each situation in a unique way.
Okay. So you mentioned like the corporate red tape, right? What are your plans for expansion, or are there any plans for expansion?
So I don't think I really have too much of a desire to grow the repair business too much more.
Mm-hmm.
I've really enjoyed the like the property development and like land ownership. I've enjoyed that. In 2018, we started a dealership, just buying and selling used trailers.
Really? Okay.
So that was good.
That's
and
cool.
then it was kind of just like this little side hustle thing
Okay.
I was doing. And then last year it went gangbusters. It did 150% of what the shop usually does. So we like more than doubled our revenue last year with the dealership. We kind of hit this sweet spot in the market. We did like somewhere around 250 trailers.
Okay.
That was really fun.
Right. Okay. So you're still doing that now, right?
Yeah, the market has gone for that right now.
Okay.
I think it'll come back, but I think everyone's just kind of a little bit nervous right now. So that's sort of just stopped.
Okay.
The next move right now is developing parking space.
Okay.
Ground in general is huge for parking in Central Ohio. So,
absolutely.
Because when you look at Central Ohio on a global scale, it offers something for transportation that nowhere else in the world offers. We have more reasonable access to population than anywhere else on the planet. We have 2 international airports. We're a big international trade zone. We have double stack rail access to most of the country, and we're a 1-day trucking drive to about 70% of the U.S. population.
That makes sense, and I guess being in the transportation industry, you've kind of done your homework on that. Okay.
Yeah, it's an anomaly. Like what we have in Columbus is an anomaly.
Yeah, absolutely. So give us a success story, right? That one that stands out in your mind. I mean, obviously you've had a lot of success, but what's top tier? I know you said I have that one story that I can tell about, unfortunately, your shop burning down.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, what's that success story?
Man, I feel like the whole thing for me is that story. I still, I pull in some mornings and I'll sit in the parking lot at 6 a.m. And to be honest, like I'll just look at it and kind of cry sometimes. I'm like, I don't really understand how I got here. But that's an interesting question because I think I focus so much on like overcoming some of those adversities and like those stories. I don't know what that would be.
Building your shop.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the whole thing, just like everything feels kind of surreal to me sometimes. Like just starting out how I started out and where I am now, like it doesn't seem real. Like the whole path was just absolutely insane.
I did have one question for you. So you said you worked at Chase. Prior to Chase, were you in school or in college, working another job?
So I worked kind of on and off with Grandpa in the shop. I tried Columbus State for a little bit. That was not for me.
Okay.
No, I think I went like 2 semesters, something like that.
Right.
Maybe half of a third. I don't know. Yeah, college was not my game.
Okay.
It was just odd jobs here and there. Like nothing really serious before Chase.
So you applied for Chase. What was your first position?
Banker services.
Okay.
Yeah, it was like when they moved the call center from Kentucky to Columbus. We were the first group of people to learn that whole operation.
That's true. How long did you stay?
I think I was there for 4.5 years, maybe. Yeah, like 4.5 years.
So when you decided to take that leap of faith, were you scared at all?
I think I was too dumb to be scared at the time, to be honest with you. Like, it just felt like there's some moments in my life that I felt like were bigger than me, and that was one of them.
Okay.
Like, it was just steadfast. This is the direction we're going. There's no other option here.
Gotcha. So going back to the trailers, right? So now I'm thinking about trends. Do trends change in your line of business? Because I mean, honestly, on the outside looking in, I just see a box, and it's all metal or wood or whatever else
Yeah.
You weld, replace parts, and that's it.
Um,
And I'm sure there's more to it than that, but
Kind of not really. Yeah. Now there's some interesting things. So we're not there yet, but there is a lot of technology coming. You know, a lot of safety precautions that'll be coming in probably the next decade or so that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. That's going to be a big deal. But like I said, we've done a good job of balancing leasing customers and carriers, and Amazon has changed that tremendously.
in what way?
The busy seasons aren't the same as they were before because of so much e-commerce. Like we're not experiencing such an influx in January like we would have. We didn't experience where everything goes out in October like we normally would have. So the e-commerce has shifted that trend, which would have been our normal workflow, tremendously. And then obviously COVID has changed the world. So we're still kind of finding our footing with that. You know, we're busy, like we're doing really well, but it's almost more consistent now than it was before.
Okay. So is that why you're looking to pivot with the challenges that are coming down the pipeline over the next 10 years?
I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity in the next 10 years. I'm kind of just going to ride that wave.
Okay. Gotcha. That makes sense.
Like,
No, go
as
ahead.
bad as this is, Warren Buffett says you buy when there's blood in the streets. So I think we've, we were not financially prepared to build the shop we built because after the fire, like we were upside down for a long time. So the last few years, even though everything's been really good in the transportation world, we haven't grown. We've really kind of kept things close to the hip, kept our debt load really low, kept our employee count where it needs to be, like big enough to service things. We're not overextending ourselves, and I think that we are going to come up on a downturn, and I think that we're going to be poised to find some opportunities in that.
Gotcha.
I don't know what that looks like
Right.
at this point, but there's going to be opportunities in the next, I would say, 18 months.
Okay. When you bring on new staff members, do you send them like through some type of training, or do you only hire people with experience?
We have much better luck hiring people without experience.
Okay.
We hire primarily based on attitude.
Okay.
If you've got a good work ethic and a good attitude, we can train you to do the job, and because we want to train you how to do things the way that we do it. I think one of the most dangerous phrases in the English language is, "We've always done it this way." Well, man, it sucks you've done it wrong the whole time.
Exactly.
There's definitely an easier way. So,
Right.
like especially when it comes to like hiring experienced mechanics, they kind of are set in their ways and they don't like change. And we've had a lot of issues hiring people that have a lot of experience. Typically, those are the ones we have the most problems with.
Okay, that makes perfect sense.
When it comes to like our wheel end program, wheel seals, like this is a PSA: do not drive next to tractors and trailers on the road. Like they are dangerous.
Yeah.
There are 3,000 documented wheel offs every year in the world. So that's a set of duals, and the brakes and all that's held on by just like one nut. And it weighs about 500 pounds. So it's just one nut comes off. So we send all our guys through training. Everyone's certified. We get our torque wrenches recertified, and a lot of the old school guys don't like that. They don't like going that extra step. But
So speaking of the tractor trailers, that's exactly why the semi trucks I speed past every time.
Yeah, get around them. Do not cruise next to them.
Right. So what's some advice that you would give? You've been an entrepreneur for a long time, since 2011. So we're talking about 12 years of, all kind of challenges. I mean, from halfway freezing to going from leaving your cushy job to figuring it out on your own, from the 2-bay shop to the bigger shop to building your own shop, one burning down. So I know you have a lot of golden gems, a lot of knowledge that you can give to the upcoming entrepreneur.
Don't be afraid to pivot. Like, I think one of my favorite quotes in the whole world is from Mike Tyson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody's going to fight him. Everyone had a plan. So Mike Tyson says, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to get punched in the face repeatedly. And it's knowing and being objective with yourself to go, okay, like, this thing didn't work. It doesn't mean all of this isn't going to work. It means this thing didn't work. What can we learn from it, and what can we do better?
Exactly.
Looking back and admitting you're wrong, admitting you made mistakes, and just making sure you learn from them and don't dwell on the fact that it happened. Like, we're all going to make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. But it's at night, I review them, and I go, okay, well, we're not going to make that particular mistake again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, I think, figuring out the risk level that you're comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think a lot of people look at the operation. I get class. I don't know how you sleep at night. You know, it's like, well, I sleep actually pretty good.
Right.
Like, but I'm comfortable with where I'm at, and then the risk versus reward that's there. And I don't think that's for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I just really struggle with moderation, as we discussed. So
Right.
my mindset is take it as far as I can take it.
Okay.
And I don't think that's for everybody, but figuring out where you're comfortable with, because there is no wrong way. There's no way to win at business. Like, you're never going to get to the finish line. The point is to stay in business.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you want to be in business for a really long time. You don't get to get one day and go, okay, I won. Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So just figuring out your progression, figuring out where you actually want to be, what you're comfortable with, and what makes sense, and not getting ahead of yourself. You know, things that last take a long time to build a foundation. So, you know, it's everything works like everything else, like we talked about. So if
Right.
you want to build a business, figure out kind of a general blueprint of what you want that to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Then just figure out how to make it happen.
Absolutely.
You know, if you want to make $1 million a year, break it down. You know, how do you eat an elephant?
Mm-hmm.
One
Right.
bite at a time.
Exactly.
Break it down into smaller segments, and don't get overwhelmed, and don't get upset that you don't make $1 million the first year.
Mhm.
Like, that's okay.
Right.
Like, because there chances are, if you would have made the $1 million the first year, you would have spent the $1 million the first year.
Mhm.
So, you know, there's definitely levels to it, and it's okay to continue to level up. So don't compare your year 1 to someone else's year 10.
Exactly.
That's a big thing, and it's easy to get away from you. Like, it's easy to look on Instagram and go, well, why don't I have a Lamborghini? Why don't I have these things? It's like, well,
Mhm.
because you're not ready for them.
Right.
And the chances are that person's probably not ready for them, but they have them.
Right. You know, I don't know if you mentioned this on camera or off camera, but I know you said you wanted to build your business, but not be an employee of your business. So you started off as an employee of your business. How did you transition from being an employee in your business to actually taking that CEO position?
Finding the right people. Is and having that clear path of, like, I know that I can't do this particular thing anymore. I need to find a person to replace that portion
Mhm.
of the business. I think there's a statistic. I think it's like somewhere around 70 or 80% of businesses, small businesses,
Mhm.
will never be sold because it's completely reliant on the owner.
Mhm.
So, and you know, I've turned down multiple offers this year to sell the business because I'm not interested in that.
Right.
But that kind of resonates of, like, I don't want to be tied to this one thing. I think that I want to do other things. I want to expand myself personally and do some other stuff. So I don't want to be tied to it.
Mhm.
And really focusing on how can you get rid of the task that you don't have to do.
Mhm.
What can you hand off? And figuring out what your time is worth is really, really important. You know, if my time is valued at $200 an hour,
Mhm.
and I can hire something out for $60 an hour, I'm going to hire it out for $60 an hour
Right.
because it's going to save me time.
Mhm.
And it's figuring out what your time is worth. And, you know, early on in the business, especially in this service-based industry, I didn't have any money, so all I could sell was my time.
Mhm.
and I could sell about 12 hours a day of myself. And it was figuring out how to make the most of that every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, well, if I have another employee, I can sell 24 hours of time
Mm-hmm.
a day.
Mm-hmm.
And it just started kind of like figuring out math. Like, I love reporting. I love numbers. So understanding that business is people, processes, and math.
Mm-hmm.
And you just got to figure out how to make those things work and make it comfortable to where you want to live and the lifestyle that you want.
Absolutely.
Like,
So when it comes to like family time, right? Obviously, you've kind of pulled yourself out of the business to a degree, right? Where you're not doing like the hands-on stuff, but you did say you're still heavily involved in your business. How do you balance that time between family and business and whatever else you like to do? You still work on cars?
no.
Okay, so you stop.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, those days are gone. I enjoy cars. I have some, but I don't work on them anymore.
Okay. So how do you balance your time?
I did a really bad job of that for a really long time.
Okay.
It actually caused quite a few issues in my life of
Mhm.
being so steadfast into the business.
Okay.
And I know that kind of brought me on my trajectory to where I am.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that's something else that entrepreneurs should be aware of, is figuring out what is truly important.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's always about the money.
Right.
It's easy to get caught up in that, and I was caught up in that for a long time. It definitely caused some damage in my personal life.
Okay.
So there's no right answer to that.
Right.
It's going to be whatever you're comfortable with,
Right.
and I think making the most of the time you do have with the people,
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that you're, even if you have just one day a week you're spending with your significant other, or your family, or whatever it is, like, make that special.
Mm-hmm.
I said I didn't do a good job of that. It was that by that time that day came, it was like, I'm tired. I just want to take a nap, and you leave me alone. And I don't recommend that.
Okay. Well, hey, we
Yeah.
live and we learn, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So any other valuable information you want to give to bring us to a close?
Stay focused. There's a line in the Bible: the largest acorn or largest oak in the world lives in the acorn. The acorn becomes the oak because it never thinks about anything else. It doesn't think about being a strawberry patch. It doesn't think about being the river. It doesn't think about anything else. It just thinks about being the biggest, best tree that it can be. And it takes all of its time and all of its focus into being that thing.
Mm-hmm.
So stay focused on the goal, and be okay with pivoting, be okay with moving, but figure out where you want to be and go there. Set your direction and stick with it. And I think that's when those challenges come, is it's almost a test from the universe of how bad do you want this thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think when you keep pushing through, it pays off.
Right.
Matter is energy,
Mm-hmm.
and things form under positivity and pressure. So a positive mindset and some pressure will get you where you need to go, but you have to have a good mindset for it. Like,
Absolutely.
you've got to wake up every day and be grateful for wherever you're at.
Mm-hmm.
If you wake up every day and go, man, I can't believe I'm here, I wish I was there, the universe doesn't like that.
Right.
But when you wake up every day and go, I am blissfully discontent with what I have right now. That's like my favorite term, is blissfully discontent.
Mm-hmm.
I love what I have. I'm grateful for it. I'm ready for more.
Right.
Like, I want more.
Exactly.
And I actually had a good conversation with my buddy the other day. I think it was I talked to him like Friday afternoon,
Mm-hmm.
and he had two big meetings on something he's working on, like a humongous deal. He's going to get done. Like, I know he's going to get it done. And so he comes over Friday, and he's like, tells me how great the meeting's going. He's like, man, I wanted to quit last night. I wanted to quit everything. I wanted to give up completely.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, so last night you wanted to quit completely, and today you go crush 2 meetings regarding millions of dollars in a deal.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah. He's like, just one more day. Just one more day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you wake up every day and go, just one more day, no matter how hard it is, always go just that one more day, because you don't know what it's going to bring.
Absolutely.
So those meetings he had on Friday were paramount to his future for what he wants to get done. But if he'd have given up Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
that never happened.
That's true. One day.
One day. Just one more day.
Right. Okay. Preston, that was a great close, man. Very valuable. A lot of great information. I'm sure a lot of people, the people that are going to listen to this, they have a lot of knowledge that they can take away. It doesn't matter what line of business they're in. They can definitely take what you shared and apply that in their business. So thank you, man. I
Yeah,
appreciate
no problem. Hopefully somebody gets some good content out of this and understands what's possible in the world. Because I never dreamed of being where I'm at or being invited on a podcast or, being in a position to share knowledge. I was kind of looked at these people that had big businesses and were doing all this stuff as kind of these mystical creatures that had done something magical, and you realize they're human too and they make mistakes, and I kind of have this issue in my brain that if someone else can do it then I can do it.
Right.
And I think that is true, that we are all much more capable than we give ourselves credit for.
Exactly.
So
I wouldn't call it an issue.
well,
because I feel the same way.
It's been called an issue. It's been called an issue.
Okay. No, but that's good stuff, man. I mean, you're a bright guy, even when we work together, just a lot of the things that you shared, there were some people that just weren't ready for, what you wanted to bring to the table. I felt like you kind of had a cap on what you were trying to do. So I can understand being able to just, hey, I'm out of here. So I create my cap.
Yeah.
But you haven't created a cap for yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, sky's the limit.
Yeah, this year, my motto has been show me how good it can be. Because I've always set pretty massive goals, and I would accomplish them by $1. If my goal was $1 million, it'd be $1,000,001. $2 million is $2,000,001. So this year it was to show me how good it can be, and we more than doubled the sales. And a good example of that is I had a big day where we paid bills and ran payroll in one day, and it was a pretty expensive day, like one of the more expensive days I'd had, and I was laughing about it, and I said, all right, well now we just need to bill out, $70,000 a day, which that doesn't, we're not writing $70,000 invoices on fixing trailers. And I had a customer call, and it was like, hey, that batch of 100 trailers we're going to do, I need you to bill them out today. $70,000.
Wow.
So it was a good reminder of don't have a limiting belief. It can be better than you think it can.
Exactly. Yeah, that's huge, man.
Yeah.
So normally I, tell everyone that we'll include your information in the description, but your business to business, I think that's very valuable. What people can walk away with is knowing that business to business is possible. You don't just have to focus on business to consumer. You have business to government as well. So just keep that in mind. Make sure if you have to, you go back, listen to a few key points as far as building those relationships, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, just being creative with how you can make your business work, how you can make your business grow. But we want to thank you for joining the Let's Evolve for Tomorrow podcast, where we help aspiring, new, and existing entrepreneurs excel to the next level by inviting other aspiring, new, and existing entrepreneurs to the podcast to give knowledge, information, and education on how to get to the next level in your business. And we'll see you next time.